This is the Kimberley Diamond Mine in South Africa in 1872. The discovery of a huge diamond here sparked a diamond rush that transformed this desolate area into one of the country's largest cities and became the cause of many bloody conflicts. In 1971, NASA employee Patricia Conklin manually assembles a map of Mars. She glues together hundreds of individual photographs taken by the Mariner 9 probe, and this painstaking work preceded the creation of the first complete atlas of the red planet. This is Venice Beach in California in 1976, the center of the new roller skating culture. Headphones, short shorts, and roller skates were not just a sport, but a lifestyle that embodied the spirit of freedom and hedonism of that era. This 1913 photo shows cousins, British King George V and Russian Tsar Nicholas II. Their striking physical resemblance is no coincidence. Their mothers were sisters, and they themselves, despite their kinship, would find themselves on opposite sides in the First World War a year later. This is Ava Gardner in the early 50s. Behind the image of a Hollywood goddess was a simple girl from a farm in North Carolina who fought the studio system her entire life and did not allow anyone to control her life. In the early 20th century, circus performer Egon Cannon Irvin, who is considered the heaviest man in Europe, plays cards with his colleagues. This picture is a unique window into the world of traveling circuses, full of unusual and colorful characters. This is Princess Badiya bint Ali, the sole survivor of the bloody military coup in Iraq in 1958. Her entire family was killed, and she managed to escape. And this picture is a portrait of the royal family taken shortly before the tragedy. This is what the Porsche assembly plant in Germany looked like in the 70s. Each of these legendary Porsche 911 cars was assembled by hand, and this picture is a tribute to the craftsmen who created automotive masterpieces. Chicago, Christmas 1929, just 2 months after the stock market crash that plunged the country into the Great Depression. Despite the snow and the overwhelming load of packages, this postman delivered the holiday with a smile, embodying the famous motto, "Neither snow nor rain." In 1995, Chinese leader Jiang Zemin and former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger have a casual conversation. Behind this scene are decades of complex diplomacy, initiated by Kissinger himself, and a discussion of the new balance of power in the world after the end of the Cold War. This is director Ridley Scott on the set of Blade Runner in 1982. He stands in the midst of the futuristic sets that he created, which forever changed the look of science fiction in cinema. This is the future famous comedian Stephen Colbert in 1984 when he was still a student. Behind this smile is a young man who is just beginning his journey into the world of satire and who, 20 years later, will become one of the most influential voices on American television. This is what the Eiffel Tower looked like in July 1888, 9 months before its opening. While workers were assembling the structures, 300 of Paris's most famous artists signed an angry letter calling the tower a useless and monstrous structure that was disfiguring the city. In 1966, a Soviet journalist interviews a penguin in Antarctica. This amusing picture is part of a photo report about the work of Soviet polar explorers in one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. In 1974, buying a color television was a serious investment, comparable to purchasing a used car. The price of $1,650 would be over $10,000 today, adjusted for inflation. But this box of color pictures was already becoming the center of the American living room. This is Steve McQueen and James Coburn on the set of the film The Great Escape in 1962. McQueen, an avid motorcyclist, performed most of the stunts in the film himself, including the famous jump over the fence, which went down in cinema history. This is future star Angelina Jolie in the arms of her mother, actress Marceline Bertrand, in the mid-70s. Behind this idyllic family scene is a story of a difficult relationship and a striking physical resemblance that would only intensify over the years. In April 1959, Fidel Castro, who was then still considered a Democrat, visited the Thomas Jefferson Memorial in Washington. This visit was part of his U.S. tour, during which he tried to convince Americans of his good intentions. But just a year later, relations between the two countries deteriorated sharply. Linda Carter as Wonder Woman in the 70s was not just an actress, but a real phenomenon. She performed many of her own stunts, including the famous scene where she hung from a helicopter, and for millions of viewers, she will forever remain a true superheroine. This is David Bowie in Paris in 1977. This picture, taken during his soul music phase, captures one of the many personas he adopted throughout his long and fruitful career, always remaining a style icon. This worker on the construction of the Empire State Building in the 30s is not a stuntman, but an ordinary construction worker. In an era when safety precautions were minimal, these men, who were called skywalkers, risked their lives every day to build the skyscrapers of New York. This is what the ruins of the Italian city of Cassino looked like in 1944. The city was completely destroyed during one of the bloodiest battles of World War II, and this picture is a tragic reminder of the price Italy paid for its liberation. This is Marilyn Monroe surrounded by adoring fans. Her incredible charisma and beauty caused real mass hysteria wherever she appeared, and this picture is a vivid confirmation of that. This is Goldie Hawn in 1964, before she became a comedy star. Behind this image of a naive and slightly bewildered girl was a sharp mind and a talent that would bring her an Oscar and nationwide love. In the 40s, Frank Sinatra was not just a singer, but a real idol who was pursued by crowds of adoring female fans. This picture, where he is literally being torn apart, is a vivid testament to the mass hysteria he caused. This is Damascus in the 70s. Long before the Civil War, it was a prosperous and modern city, and this picture is a reminder of the peaceful life that was lost as a result of the long-standing conflict. This woman with a child in front of empty shelves is not a scene from a disaster movie, but a common scene from a store in the last years of the USSR. This is what the collapse of the planned economy looked like, when a country that produced tanks and space rockets could not provide its citizens with basic food products. In the early 20th century, workers at champagne factories wore these masks to protect themselves from exploding bottles. The pressure in the bottle was so high that any carelessness could lead to a serious injury. This is the evolution of the Coca-Cola bottle over 100 years. From a simple glass container to the famous contour bottle, which has become one of the most recognizable design objects in the world, its shape has changed with the times. Soviet scientist Yuri Knorosov holds his Siamese cat Asya, whom he jokingly called the co-author of his works. Without leaving the USSR, he was able to decipher the Mayan script, making a breakthrough that had eluded Western researchers with access to the original manuscripts for decades. This is what ice fishing in Michigan looked like in the 50s. Instead of tents and heaters, these fishermen simply drove their Chrysler onto the ice and fished without leaving the warm interior of the car. Howard Carter and his assistant Arthur Callender, in 1923, preserve a chariot from Tutankhamun's tomb. The priceless 3,000-year-old artifact lies on a table covered with yesterday's newspapers, which perfectly illustrates the simple conditions under which the greatest archaeological discoveries were made. This is photographer Elliot Erwitt, capturing the backstage of a show at the Tropicana Casino in 1957. Behind the glitter of the stage costumes and the bright lights of the dressing room mirrors was the routine work of the dancers preparing to go on stage. This 9th century sculpture from the Indian state of Rajasthan is not just a depiction of the female body, but an embodiment of ancient ideas of divine beauty. Every detail, from the jewelry to the curves of the figure, was part of a complex religious and cultural code that we can only try to decipher today. Before becoming a movie star, Brigitte Bardot dedicated her youth to ballet, training for years at the Paris Conservatory. This picture from the early 50s shows her perseverance. She is rehearsing not in a shiny studio, but on a simple rooftop, high above the streets of Paris. In 1980, these guys from the Guardian Angels were the answer to the chaos in the New York subway. Their founder, Curtis Sliwa, created a patrol of McDonald's employees, and at first they were considered just vigilantes, until the city's residents realized that in the most dangerous cars, only they could ensure order. This is the legendary hockey player Bobby Orr, scoring the winning goal in the Stanley Cup Final in 1970. His famous flight over the ice after the shot became one of the most iconic images in sports history, and a symbol of the Boston Bruins' triumph. In 1996, actor Joaquin Phoenix, tired of a staged photo shoot, simply went to the kitchen and started washing dishes. The photographer, George Holtz, continued to shoot, and in the end, this spontaneous shot became the most famous of the entire series. This is a portrait of Linda Carter taken in 1970, 5 years before she would don her famous costume. Here she is still just a budding actress, and no one suspects that her face will become the face of the most famous superheroine in television history. Actress Jane Mansfield in the 50s was Marilyn Monroe's main rival for the title of Hollywood sex symbol. However, few people know that she was one of the smartest women in the industry with an IQ of 163, spoke 5 languages fluently, and was a classical pianist. This is Italian actress Claudia Cardinale in the 60s. She was not only a sex symbol, but also a muse to great directors like Fellini and Visconti, and her low, husky voice became her trademark. On the set of the film Kelly's Heroes in 1970, two Americas met. Clint Eastwood embodied the classic silent hero, while Donald Sutherland, as the hippie tanker Oddball, brought the spirit of counterculture and Woodstock to the screen.